So, first show this week is ReZero as per usual. It's kind of a shame Lewis isn't here, so we can't talk about this episode because it was a very big episode for this arc. People were not lying, just not in the way that everyone was expecting. Although, given how previous episodes of ReZero gone and the peak episodes that people tend to talk about, which are 7, 8, 15, I believe, and now 18. I guess it's not too surprising that it was a very talky episode, because that's kind of like the thing with all those episodes, is characters talking about stuff. And that's usually, those are the episodes that like everyone holds in high regard. So I guess it's not actually too surprising in retrospect. It's just everyone was talking about it so much. A lot of people probably expected some crazy action shit, and I didn't necessarily expect crazy action shit, but like subconsciously maybe a little bit I was, because the staff were talking about how much work they did on the episode, so I was like, oh, there's gonna be like some crazy movement and shit going on. And I mean, there is some shit that goes down the first 4 minutes, as far as like animation stuff, but for the most part it's just basically them like, Subaru and Rem having a conversation, well, an argument more like, and then there was a bit of directing there. The first 4 minutes are interesting. A lot of little bits here and there that we got to learn, pieces of information that will hopefully tie into stuff later on, which if ReZero so far has been anything to go by, it absolutely will. We know that Puck has a contract. We learn more of the details about Puck's contract with Amelia. Basically, if she dies, Puck will destroy the world. Whether he means that literally or just in the sense of he's going to do as much fucking damage as he can before he disappears is, who knows. It seems like it should be more literally, but we don't actually know if Puck can actually destroy the entire world. Like, it seems like he probably can in his crazy form, but who knows. So it's interesting that that's the binds of their contract. It's interesting, like, to think about how this contract came to be. Like, was Amelia the one who said, if I die, you destroy the world? Was Puck the one who said, if you die, I'll destroy the world? Like, who knows? Maybe this is a crazy thought. Maybe Puck was actually not necessarily evil, but like he planned to destroy the world regardless or something. Like that was in his initial plan, and Amelia made a contract with him to stop him from doing that. Basically, almost as a way of like caging him, and they grew this like familial bond or whatever. But it doesn't change the fact that if she dies, he'll destroy the world. It's kind of an interesting thought. And then there's also other, more negative connotations where like, it's a mutual contract where if she dies, destroy the world, stuff like that. Ideas of there being Satella also, because Puck seems to know Satella. So there's interesting thought process there. Maybe Puck was initially Satella's familiar and something happened and now he's not anymore. Maybe hence that's why he was going to destroy the world, because he wasn't her familiar anymore, and then Amelia stopped him through the contract, in my theory. I don't know. It's interesting stuff to think about. We also learned that the whale is Gluttony, or like Gluttony's pet or something. I don't know. Apparently there's like a bit of a dispute over the translation there. So that's interesting. And then the whole rest of the episode is basically the argument between Rem and Subaru. And I want to say before I go any further, although it's not like I have that long to talk about this episode before I can cover the others. There's a lot of when people said this episode was gonna split the community, because apparently it split the readership of like the web novel or the light novel or whatever, and so it was gonna do the same to the anime viewers. I wasn't quite expecting it to be for this reason. it's a fucking waifu war. Like, out of all things from the show ReZero that could split the viewership, I thought it was just gonna be like dark as fuck, and some people just weren't gonna be able to take it. And so that's what was going to split the viewership. Or maybe it was going to be divided over whether it was edgy or something. And there was a huge argument over whether it had jumped the shark as far as edginess or something. I didn't expect a fucking waifu war. That was the last thing I expected out of the response to ReZero. But it's interesting. I'm kind of glad that it's not dragging it out, though. Before I keep going any further, I should say. Like, I'm glad that Subaru's made it clear that his choice is Amelia, so he's not going to drag Rem along with, usual harem style of other shows where it's just like, it wouldn't necessarily make it a harem. I mean, it would, actually, no, it wouldn't, because it would require more than one chick to like Subaru, and the only one with romantic feelings for him so far is Rem. If anything, it just makes it a love triangle, which isn't inherently haremish, so there you go. I'm losing my train of thought. I'm just kind of saying words as they come to my brain, and I'm tired. I have more complicated thoughts, but my very tired brain is having a hard time pulling them out of my head. Anyways, I should stop talking about how tired I am because that's wasting time. I should. I don't know. It's just kind of interesting that a waifu war is what's like huge and divisive over people. And I was gonna argue about dramas and harems and stuff, and about definitions and such, and intent, but that's too complicated to have in a segment I only have 20 minutes for, and it's already been like 7.5 minutes. It's kind of interesting. I didn't care much. It's not that I didn't care much. I didn't entirely board the Rem train per se until this episode. There were people talking about how much they liked Rem and stuff in the previous episodes, but I didn't really board that. I wasn't on board with that. I didn't agree necessarily. I didn't think much of her feelings for Subaru. Like, I understood them, where they came from, given what happened in the last arc, but it didn't feel substantial for me. So I was just kind of like, okay, that's just a thing that's kind of there, sure. And I wasn't completely on board with her. And then this episode finally turned that around after the argument and how she handled herself. In a way, it was almost like a perfect example of how, you know, the conversation Subaru had with Amelia back in like episode 14 or 13 or something should have gone. Subaru was using his emotions to like control her and basically keep her with him, whereas Rem used her feelings for Subaru as a way to pull him out of his despair. So it was almost like a perfect example of how to do that instead. So it was interesting. There's a lot of parallels in this that's very interesting. A lot of the way Rem feels towards Subaru can also be applied as far as Subaru feels towards Amelia. Which kind of ties me into how people are like really, really... Well, I mean, people of course are upset that Rem didn't get chosen because they've liked her a lot the most recent episodes. I say it's a bit of recency bias because Amelia hasn't been around a lot this arc. She was around at the beginning, and then the loop was established after she left Subaru. For him to stay and get healed and stuff. So we haven't seen that much of Amelia. So we've got a lot of time to spend with Rem. Especially as far as like how when characters die and shit like that. So it's a bit of a recency bias thing just because we've gotten to see Rem a lot, I feel like. But it's interesting that what's more interesting is that people are really upset because they don't get Subaru's feelings, which is something I don't get. I don't get Subaru's feelings. I don't get the people who don't get Subaru's feelings, if that wording makes sense. I don't get the response. Yeah. Basically, people don't get where Subaru's feelings are coming from for Amelia. I already made a little comment about how you could apply how Rem feels about Subaru towards how Subaru feels about Amelia. Which is interesting because, like, a lot of the ways that Rem feels about Subaru weren't clear until this episode. She had to actually literally spell it out. And if you think about it, it does kind of apply for Subaru in regards to Amelia. But more importantly, I mentioned the recency bias, and the reason I say that is because it's pretty fucking obvious why Subaru has feelings for Amelia if you remember the previous arcs. Like, if you stop thinking about the most recent episodes, which, I mean, obviously the most recent episodes are the biggest ones in your memory, just, if you rewatch the previous arcs, it's pretty fucking obvious why Subaru has feelings for Amelia. Like, basically, episodes to be highlighted, I mentioned this on Twitter, are rewatch episodes 1 and 8 in particular, and if you still don't get why he has feelings for Amelia, then there's no convincing you at all. Because those episodes lay out pretty fucking clearly why Subaru would... I mean, he initially had little feelings towards Amelia too, because, he liked her. He found her attractive, and he liked... Episode 1 is the reason I say to rewatch it, is because, well, initially it's a physical attraction, do you think she's attractive? And then, I said that twice, and then, she has traits that he likes, her selflessness to help the child, even though it goes out of her way when she's in the middle of trying to find her medallion, which is, selflessness is something that initially attracts him to her, and which starts the bonds of, like, a real, genuine feelings of, romantic feelings towards her. And then it kind of, goes up over the course of the episodes until episode 8, and if episode 8 doesn't convince you why Subaru would, like, really fall head over heels for her, then I don't fucking know. Also important to remember in Arc 2 is that Subaru lived through a lot of arcs of Rem brutally killing him. I mean, he couldn't really see who did it the first 2 times, but there was the one time where she, like, basically tortured him while trying to get information out of him, so... there might be some inherent psychology there about not necessarily wanting to be with her, but... I mean, Subaru's the kind of guy who would put that aside, but I mean, it's important to remember that. Like, everyone's all like, oh my god, Rem is so amazing and pure and, you know, incredible. Why would you not do that? And it's like, do you remember the arcs where she brutally tortured him? Because that was a thing that happened. It's just that this arc is the one that he happened to know what to do because he knew everything about her already. So he did exactly the right response and stuff. Important to keep that in mind. I'm not saying, you know, Rem's a bad character or anything like that. Like I said, I get it. I'm on board the Rem train now. I'm just saying, if you don't understand why Subaru has feelings towards Amelia, you've either forgotten or haven't been paying attention. So that's a thing.